I have a fairly clear picture of what type of country we're living in. I think it might be interesting to further explore this notion of corporations as countries. I'd like to, get a better idea of what actually you mean by that, and what more you get out of that heuristic, rather than to say that, there's this kind of, I think, unproductive framework that exists at the retail level of politics that distinguishes and makes a lot of this distinction between the public and private sector, not really realizing that once you get high enough into the power structure, the very distinction between public and private kind of evaporates. And so what does it mean to say that the corporations are becoming countries? And one kind of a way to tease that out, and it's related to certain tweets that I sent out the other day.
You sent out some awesome tweets
in relation to Jack Ma, and that is, everyone's saying, "Oh wow, look at this! The CCP is laying down the hammer on Jack Ma." In a way, that's true. That if that's the case, it's pretty brutal. But on the other hand, I think it's shocking to Americans simply to see a government, a state, exhibit real power over a corporate oligarch. That simply doesn't happen in the United States. In the United States, it is the corporations that call the shots and the lobbyists who write the laws, and it's the politicians who follow. And so there's something exotic and foreign about a head of a major company like Jack Ma was, who criticizes his government and, in a sense, by extension, his country, the power structure of the country, and they just crush him.
So I'll give you a sense of that, because it's really interesting. Hold on, I'm going to order some water first, and then I'm going to see how I did that. So I've got to also say, there's a lot of questions here, and I want to be responsive to them. One of your tweets is one of my favorite tweets of all time, by the way. And it's going to make it into my chronicle. And at first I was kind of offended by it, right? And then I really thought about it. I was offended for like the first 30 seconds, but then I contemplated it, right? I had that internal dialogue, and I was like, wow, this is a really powerful statement. It was some politician. I don't recall what her name is. Maybe, I don't know a lot of these people. Was it
Marsha Blackburn's tweet about Winnie the Pooh?
Yes, it was. And then what you said, okay, so it was Marsha saying something about how in China, it's a communist country and you can't criticize Winnie the Pooh. You can't criticize, you can't make any type of contrast or comparison between she and Winnie the Pooh. And you subtweeted it, and you said, okay, I think you said something like, well, now do that with George Floyd. What was your exact tweet?
No, I said exactly, now do George Floyd. And I introduced a joke that's very relevant to this. It's an old joke that, it's a Soviet and a German living under Nazi Germany. And the Soviet is just complaining about how horrible things are under Stalin. They have no rights. They can't criticize Stalin. In fact, anyone who criticized Stalin goes straight to the gulag. And then the German under Hitler says, oh, you poor guys in Germany, we have much more freedom. We can criticize Stalin all we want.
That's awesome.
And that's precisely, the problem with Blackburn's tweet is that, okay, yeah, in China, it's no newsflash that you can't criticize President Xi, but let's not pretend like
it was a brilliant tweet. It was a brilliant tweet. And it took me aback because, I don't want to get in, in the intricacies of these social movements. And, I try and avoid such things because there's so much complexity, and, it is what it is. And so at first I was taken aback, right? I didn't want to see a reference to it because of that complexity. And then I was like, you know what? He's really right. This is a really good point that, it is what it is. I think everyone can pick up from the point from there. It was really, really smart.
I think this is something that we all need to start ask ourselves, because I think and I think we both agreed on this. You know, there was the political rhetoric of Beijing, Biden, that Biden would, you know, be in the pocket of China. Maybe actually we disagreed with this, but I maintain my position that the Beijing Biden thing is largely a fiction. I think under Biden, we will continue with a very aggressive, perhaps even more aggressive policy toward China, because I think at this point, a neo-Cold War footing with China is baked into the cake from the standpoint of every faction in our ruling class, excepting perhaps Wall Street, which has diminished prestige, diminished stature related to what it was pre-2008. The military-industrial complex, it needs a new grift, it needs a new scam, and what better for the budgets than a new Cold War with China? Everything's converged. Even George Soros is saying basically we need to go after China and intimating we need regime change in China. So
can I get some water?
The entire ruling class is converged on this issue.
Can I get some water, please? Yeah, Darren, do you want something to drink? Do you want some water?
I will hold off on the drink until I finish this point that the entire ruling class basically is converged on this issue that we must have neo-Cold War footing on China. They're going to ramp it up. And I guess I'm all for that. I only say that even as we saber rattle with respect to China and talk about, oh, how great it is we have these protesters in Hong Kong, even as we basically call our own protesters here at home, at least insofar as they're pro-Trump, domestic terrorists, how much are we actually becoming like China? Do we really have more free speech than we do in China? And ultimately, what is at stake for regular Americans, even for this, you know, for America to maintain its global hegemony with respect to China? I'm increasingly questioning the connection between America's stature as a global hegemon and the well-being and standard of living and livelihood of regular Americans. I think there's never been such a disconnect as we see now, and it's something we need to address as we go forward with this neo-Cold War with China.
All right, we've said so much, and there's a lot of questions here, and I really want to go back to them. And you make such good points. I've listened to the Periscope we did actually a few times, and I think about it. I have a good memory, which is a good and a bad thing because I remember everything, right? And but I think about it a lot. And you did reference China and several times, and I've been warning people about kind of that China is a leading indicator for where America is going for a long time in terms of social credit system, in terms of the relationship they have with their people. So I want to go over a couple of things, and then I want to get into some questions, but you said such interesting stuff. So first, with the megacorps becoming corporations, it's already happened, and it's going to become codified under Biden. I think Biden is going to see kind of a rewrite of the Constitution, right? I think it's going to happen very, very quickly because as far as the oligarchs are concerned, they need to start with a clean slate of marble, right? They don't want to chisel away at a statue that's already been created and then come out with a smaller and lesser perhaps. They want a clean slate of marble, so they've got to tear down all of history so as to make it as fresh a slate as they can. And however they accomplish that, I expect them to.
I have a related question.
Yeah.
Who do you think are the top 5 most powerful people in the United States?
Okay. Well, in the world, forget about it. Well, let's say in the Western world. You're thinking of the United States. The Westphalia Agreement's been thrown out the window, right? Okay. So I think about this a lot, and so much so that I've needed to just reread so much of what I kind of casually read in the past because I needed to get those thoughts, that kind of all the turbulence in my head, and be able to express it better. So now I'm an expert on the Westphalia Agreement, right? So it's been torn apart. There is no longer such a thing.
Okay, who are the top 5 most powerful people who are citizens of the United States?
Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, they're so strong. Probably George Soros now, because he's an incumbent that has the most familiarity with the activist industrial complex, right? Which is available for lease.
Right.
And he leases it out, right? Who else would I include? Well, there's, I don't know. I'm really observing kind of Google, what Eric Schmidt's been doing, what Jared's been doing over, what is it? Jared Cohen has been doing over at Google.